Congress has a big choice to make, one that has the power to affect the overdose crisis, mass incarceration, and harm reduction efforts nationwide. I'm Ellen Glover, the Drug Policy, Harm Reduction, and Criminal Justice Campaign Director at People's Action. Today, I'm here to talk about fentanyl and what we can do right now to save lives and end overdoses. Fentanyl is a highly potent synthetic opioid that is partially responsible for increased overdose deaths across the country over the past few years. The Drug Enforcement Agency has classified fentanyl as a Schedule II drug for decades, meaning it is severely criminalized. In 2018, Congress moved to temporarily schedule all fentanyl analogues, any substance chemically similar to fentanyl, as Schedule I drugs. The Schedule I classification comes with even more severe punishment than Schedule II. This class-wide scheduling was lawmakers' attempt to curb increased overdose deaths. Unfortunately, it has had the opposite effect. The temporary classification was just renewed through October 2021, and it is not working. Let's dig into why we want Congress to let the class-wide scheduling expire. We know that increased fentanyl in the street-level drug supply has led to increased overdose deaths in recent years. To explain what makes fentanyl analogues different, we turn to Grant Smith from the Drug Policy Alliance.
So fentanyl analogues are essentially substances that are chemically similar to fentanyl, but they're not necessarily as potent as fentanyl. In fact, there are thousands of known analogues out there, and they range in potency as well as purity. They are typically manufactured outside the United States in clandestine laboratories illicitly, and then mixed into the drug supply high up in the drug distribution chain. So by the time they get to the street level, most people, often people don't know they're present in the drug supply. So they might be mixed into heroin. Sometimes it gets mixed into other drugs.
Despite the diversity in purity, potency, and psychoactivity of these drugs, they are all currently Schedule I. This means they come with severe mandatory minimum sentences as laid out in the Controlled Substances Act.
For example, if someone is caught with 10 grams of a substance, it could be anything. It could be baking powder, it could be heroin. If that substance contains just a trace amount, just a few molecules of one of these analogues that has been scheduled or banned, that triggers a 5-year mandatory minimum. So the Trump administration decided to implement something called class-wide scheduling of fentanyl analogues. So essentially taking all those substances I mentioned that are chemically similar to fentanyl and adding them to Schedule I all at once.
This is the Trump-era policy that is set to expire in October 2021, and it is a direct result of the war on drugs that President Nixon declared 50 years ago.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
Since then, we've seen the failures of addressing substance use when approached through a criminalization lens rather than a public health lens. Here's Ryan Fowler and Anthony Harris from Rights and Democracy, New Hampshire.
We know that prohibition is a failed experiment. Taking people into captivity and taking away their rights is not public health. Offering punitive measures for drug use doesn't work and actually makes the problem worse and gives us situations like the overdose crisis.
This so-called war on drugs has done absolutely nothing for the people in our country, but to oppress and kill us. Since it first reared its ugly head, prohibition has been used as a weapon against poor people and people of color, and now it's killing us all.
I used to call it a failed war on drugs, but it became kind of clear that it's been a very successful war on drug users. 80,000 people dying every 12 months, that's not an accident. That's 80,000 people whose needs were not met. That's 80,000 policy failures.
Since the class-wide scheduling of fentanyl analogues went into effect, fentanyl-related overdose deaths have skyrocketed, which once again shows that criminalization does not work to save lives. So what is the answer, if not criminalization? Jasmine Budinella from Vocal New York has a few suggestions.
What if we channel our anger to dismantle the policies of the drug war that got us here so that we can keep more people alive and end this devastating crisis? If we truly say we can't arrest our way out of this crisis, we need to center public health, then we need to look at solutions that will keep our loved ones safe. And it's not just one solution, it's many solutions working together. An evidence-based solution, when we're talking about fentanyl, is normalizing drug checking and making drug checking kits wildly accessible in the community alongside harm reduction education. Imagine if we could go to a pharmacy and get drug checking kits, and it was normal to see commercials and billboards saying, if you're going to use, check your drugs, go slow, and use with friends, have naloxone on hand.
Imagine a world where we treat each other with care. A world where people aren't locked away for our mistakes, but offered a way to heal. Where treatments and harm reduction supports are widely available, helping people overcome challenges and stay alive. When we join together, we can make this a place where we have the supports that we need to recover from addiction and shape our lives into what we imagine they can be. Harm reduction tactics and investing in treatment access are the only proven ways out of the overdose crisis. And Congress choosing a new path of a public health approach that follows the evidence is key. Congress must allow the class-wide scheduling of fentanyl and fentanyl analogues to expire as the first step on this path.